Hey, welcome to another video, and in this video I'm talking about one of my more favorite species of animals to talk about, and that will be the shark. If you've seen most of my videos or you've watched some of the videos, you'll know that the shark is by far my favorite animal of the sea. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Not just the shark, but what's happening to them currently. And it's rather interesting. It's something that I just found out, and I figured, you know what, it's something that I'm going to share because it has something to do with ocean acidification. Let's just jump right into it and start the video. Let's roll that intro. A research team from 3 South African institutes examined whether or not ocean acidification is having adverse effects on sharks. And what they found were that the dermal denticles of the sharks are being destroyed. These dermal denticles act like scales, but are not actually scales. In fact, when you put them under a microscope, they look a little bit more like teeth. This is what's going to give sharks that classic sandpaper feel that you hear about when people brush against them. That is, if you rub them the wrong way. If you rub a shark from head to tail, it's smooth. Rub it from the other way, it's kind of like sandpaper. The research team then wanted to test this theory of whether or not ocean acidification was affecting these modified scales. And what they did was they placed a specific amount of sharks into a tank that was a little bit more acidic than a controlled tank of just seawater and sharks. What the researchers found was that the sharks that were subjected to the more acidic water suffered a 25% decline in dermal denticle coverage over the species. What this meant was that the sharks suffered adversely through swimming, as well as their hunting, because they couldn't get to the food as quick or as coordinated as they would have liked to. They then went on to further analyze the blood of the two different groups, and what they found was that the blood that was from the more acidic water took up more CO2 and bicarbonate from the water, affecting the blood. What this showed was that the sharks that were subjected to the more acidic based seawater had to adapt their bloodstreams to the amount of carbon and bicarbonate in the water. This ultimately changed their entire regulatory pattern in order to fit a changing environment. So how is this occurring, you may be wondering? This is occurring through the breakdown of calcium carbonate, which is a necessary building structure in the calcium-based organisms. Sharks, mainly. In this study, anyway. But that also affects corals, as well as many other shell-based organisms that require calcium carbonate to maintain their structural integrity. To understand how this breakdown occurs, we have to delve into ocean acidification itself, because that's where it happens. I'm not going to go too deep into this. I'm just going to brush over the necessary topics so you get how CO2 goes from being in the atmosphere to coming down into the ocean, breaking apart and becoming basically acidic water and affecting the entire environment that many species rely on. Let's delve into it. So ocean acidification occurs where increased amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere caused by us, mainly, becomes dissolved in the water. Now, the ocean is one of the largest carbon sinks on the planet, alongside many rainforests. Currently, the estimates for the last 200 years on the amount of CO2 the ocean has taken up is roughly 523 billion tons of CO2. That's made the ocean 30% more acidic than the industrial era. That also means that the ocean takes up roughly 22 million tons of carbon a day. As the carbon dioxide becomes dissolved in the water, it splits and becomes carbonic acid as well as aqueous carbon. This carbonic acid then splits again to turn into bicarbonate ions. These bicarbonate ions then split again and become carbonate ions. These splitting processes and ultimately the carbonate ions shift the pH levels by adding more protons into the water, ultimately making it more acidic. This acidic seawater then starts to break down any carbonate-based organisms or any carbonate-based object in the water. So this carbonic acid that's formed from the breakdown of CO2 from the atmosphere, and the fact that we are pumping large amounts, I'd probably say metric tons of CO2, actually easily say metric tons of CO2 into the atmosphere, it's kind of easy to understand that a lot of the CO2 that gets taken up by the ocean is gonna start deteriorating the ocean. If sharks continue to suffer the adverse effects of increased CO2 from the atmosphere and ultimately increased carbon uptake in oceanic environments, we're going to see large decreases in shark populations globally. This is because sharks rely on these dermal denticles for hunting, as well as speed and agility through the water. Dermal denticles on sharks reduce the amount of drag and turbulence produced by moving through such a thick liquid. It may not seem thick because we can jump through it, but it's very, very dense when met with high speeds. These dermal denticles allow that to fall off. It's kind of like if you were putting an oil over a surface and water's just brushing past it, is essentially what's basically happened. As the study found, you remove these dermal tentacles, the sharks start to suffer because they can't swim to their prey, or they just can't swim in very straight, agile lines. Although this was the only study I found, it's definitely an eye-opener to the fact that we're pumping large amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere, and it's now starting to become, I guess you could say, big news to the world, or an eye-opener to the world, that we need to change quickly. And the fact that we're now affecting the way that animals swim because we're destroying the one thing that allows them to swim is kind of hard to believe. You've got a very necessary species in the water for maintaining a highly complex nutrient cycle. You remove these sharks, you remove that nutrient cycle, everything starts cascading and we get a dead ocean. Figures have already shown this, models have already shown this, and future predictions have already shown this. The science is there. We just need to make the change. Anyway, that's that. I hope you liked that video. It was just a quick one of sharks. I love sharks, as I already said at the start of the video. But yeah, I hope you guys liked that. It was a little eye-opener. It was an eye-opener to me because I didn't know that. So that was some brand new research to me. Very interesting that ocean acidification is now affecting sharks' dermal denticles, which makes sense because they're basically calcium based. But yeah, I hope you liked that video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button down below, as I always do, or try to anyway. I'll put the research down below, and I'll see you guys next week for another video. See what we can find. See you around.